God, open our eyes to see you, our ears to hear you, our minds to know you, and our hearts to love you. Amen. One of my favorite TV shows is The Office, and I'm going to show you a brief clip when Pam Beasley, the office's receptionist, has an art show she's invited her coworkers to. Depending on what glasses you have on, two people will look at the exact same picture and see two very different things. The first people in the clip, Pam's coworker Oscar and his friend Gil, are seeing with vision that the world too often runs on today. Achievement first and all else second. Earn your place and then I'll give you that place. Don't earn it and you won't get it. Get A's and B's and maybe you'll get into a really good college. Don't, and good luck with your future. You should have worked harder. If you just worked harder, then all would be magically well. This obsession with accomplishment as being the key to happiness, according to God, is one big, fat, ugly lie that has been around since biblical times. Today's gospel, a few workers work different amount of hours. Some worked all day from dawn till dusk, and some came and barely worked an hour, but they were paid the same. The other workers were furious at the fact that they worked much longer and got paid the same, even claiming that it was unfair. But notice that nothing factually is unfair about it. They agreed to work for a set amount of hours, for a set pay, and the manager who didn't have to hire them fulfilled his contract in full. The unfair feelings only start when they compare themselves to others. Instead of focusing on their own life and the joy, and yes, perhaps the achievement that God brings them, in other ways, they are completely derailed by this one instance of comparing themselves to others. And if this is your life, day in and day out, it's going to be very hard to be happy. God created this world, including everyone perpetuating the culture of achievement, but you wouldn't know that by looking at us sometimes. Because God's narrative, what God stands for, runs the opposite way. God doesn't care about your achievements. He doesn't pay attention to how many games you win or what grades you get or what promotion you get or what invention you invent. He cares only for the effect that these things have on others. If it's not about relationships, if it doesn't deepen the concept of love, then he is not interested. The amount of verses that talk about accomplishing things and being educated in the Bible, I can probably count on one hand. And nowhere in the Bible does it say that achieving things just to achieve it without being connected to a relationship with either someone else or God makes any sense. It reminds me of that Christmas song, You Better Watch Out, with the line, so be good for goodness sake. And I always say, well, wait, what? Goodness doesn't have a stake in the outcome. Goodness is an arbitrary concept, so don't just be good for the heck of it. We teach kids from an early age that competition is critical, winning is critical, getting ahead is critical, multitasking many hobbies and interests at once is critical. Meanwhile, none of these things are critical to being happy and oftentimes are more harmful. It's important to recognize this, that the achievement or even the concepts that we raise kids are not harmful. It's simply how we frame and connect things that matters and makes the difference. So with God's lens, with his glasses on, there is so much power in our everyday activities, playing soccer, lacrosse, basketball, going to work, watching a movie with family. Without God's glasses on, there simply can be no point. I'm reminded of my dad when I think of how he worked his whole life. He's still working, almost retired. He didn't work because he loved his job. He sold and engineered printers, and that has nothing to do with my father's values or talents. He's good at it, don't get me wrong, but he worked out of love for his family and to cultivate that love into more family. He worked to support me. He didn't work simply to achieve, because at the end of the day, there's nothing beyond that. With God, there is a beyond. Achievement on its own, without being rooted in changing relationships, is a transient situation. It lives only on earth, and once you leave earth, your trophies don't get packed in a suitcase. Achieving doesn't sustain you, and you'll just want more and more until you're so busy you forget why you're doing the things you're doing. It all comes back to love. Love is the prescription of those God glasses. And when you're working to accomplish a task or several, you can lose this sight. Last year, I was hired to run the technology for the Diocese of Mass convention. It was an extraordinary amount of work over 6 months, but I was getting paid, and I enjoy major projects where someone says, here is our vision, now make it happen. You get to design it and implement it using cutting-edge resources. Everything from the early scribbled notes to the schematics to the purchasing, the hiring of staff, the first box you open. But this memory for me does not come with a trophy or an achievement, at least not in the traditional sense. In fact, the classification I put it under is failure. It's my failure. The hotel had overbooked some of their spaces, and my team and I had a lot less ability to implement my hundreds of hours of planning. And without the resources of a large company, I could not call in 5 extra people on an emergent basis. I did what I had to do. I stayed awake for 48 hours in a row until the morning of the convention. It was 75% set up. It was not complete. The project was not fulfilled. Sorry, I didn't mean to leave on a cliffhanger. I lost my spot. Project was not fulfilled. And my usually sharp mind that can think on its feet and adapt had shut down at that point. Within an hour, I was in the hospital and thinking of what to write in my resignation letter. I didn't even want to stay in Massachusetts. I was pretty embarrassed. But the way in which I've just told the story is through those worldly glasses. It completely leaves out all God, and this experience had a lot of God, as most do. Because although the convention will never really end for me, as it replays in my mind, next to that are Isabel and Alex, parishioners here, and I cracking up with laughter into the early hours of the morning. And next to that is a vivid image of a tall Hall Kirkham, calmly but with anxious concern entering the emergency room looking around for me. I then see Jen McCracken, who I had never had a conversation with of any length, walking me into the hotel lobby shoeless, with everyone on break shielding me like a bodyguard, as if we had been friends our whole life. I see Bill Tennyson like a superhero in the eyes of Isabel and Alex as they drove the whole ship that day, plugging leaks where we didn't finish and painting over the bare walls as best they could. I see Isabel after a few hours of sleep entering the ballroom, all dressed for work in black and tan, and me ready to drop of exhaustion. A moment of emotional vulnerability, tears started to fill my eyes, and I left before she could see. But I repeated one final directive before departing to my hotel room. I looked at her, and I knew somehow in that moment that I was not going to be able to stay awake any longer. I was not going to be able to achieve this goal that I had worked so hard and passionately for. I knew I had to trust her, and I knew that they all would have my back. All of what I just described, that's the God narrative. That's the God in the story. God cares about the emotions you feel, the relationships that are changed because of your pursuit of goals, the love that is given, the sacrifices that are made. I can assure you he didn't care about what camera I used or how many hours I tried to get this project done. When you're achieving something next time, whatever it is, big or small, try saying this to yourself: love wins. Achievements fade and are fleeting. Love is the real winner. God's love, what the world truly runs on, can never die. Even when love is put to death on a cross, love wins. Amen.